So one of the things I think we need to pay attention to is something that's very insidious that's happening in the conservative area of the West, and I think we need to take note of this. It's happening in the churches too, no doubt about that. But I think what's happening is a movement has started ever since Trump has got in, and I think it's the underlying premise is to undermine Trump, is to undermine the conservative movement in the West, is to undermine Christianity, and to undermine Israel. It's all tied together. So I know it's going to sound weird because we're used to saying the woke is on the left side. But we have people in conservatism that have a lot of followers, big platforms, that are undermining what conservatives are actually doing. And it's almost like, I don't want to get conspiratorial, but it's almost like they have parachuted in conservatism and they're taking it in a different direction. And it's kind of weird. So I put some things together. So what we're seeing is a coordinated effort from conservative elites to restrict conservative viewpoints. Conservatism is being hijacked by this woke right. You know, I think I gave you an example the other day. Maybe I was talking to you. I'm forgetting where I'm talking. But if I'm repeating myself, then say you've repeated this and you're an old man. So I was talking to a group of Republicans, okay? Not Christians, Republicans. And got to talk to them afterwards and stuff like that, and talked to a few of them individually. And what I noticed talking to some individuals after I presented was that I said, we're not on the same page here. We're definitely not on the same page. And I'm not talking about different views on policy. I'm talking like Israel versus antisemitism, gay marriage versus traditional marriage, gender versus multi-genders, two genders versus 52. And I was taken aback a little bit. And I thought, we got a problem here. And I think, when we've seen the advent of Trump and when we've seen him from the outside, he's not part of the establishment, right? And we see that even in local politics here. Like say, for instance, somebody in here wants to run for local politics. Good luck, because you're not going to do it, because you're not part of the system. And you better be a multimillionaire if you're going to run, because you're going to run on your own, and you're going to run on your own money. Because if you're not part of the system, you're not getting any conservative money from the system. Okay? That's just the way it is. And that's the way Washington is, okay? There's an establishment. And so this advent of Donald Trump has broken through the establishment and has garnered a lot of support, obviously. And everyone knows why. But there are some people in the conservative movement that is resentful towards this. Because they're thinking like, hey man, we paid our dues, it's our time, this and that. And who is this outsider that broke into our system? And yeah, well, we needed that because you guys aren't doing anything. And so there's been an undercurrent that's been going on here, okay? Some of these woke right people are manipulating the conservative movement for their own gain. That's what's starting to happen. Okay, so let's just get our conservatism together. So when we're talking about politics, us being Christians are going to be very, very conservative. Okay, so they're going to call you the hard right, and that's okay. I'm a biblicist. I go with what the Bible says. That's my authority. I believe in biblical marriage. I don't believe in gay marriage. Sorry. I believe in two genders because that's biblical. I believe in biblical sexuality. I believe in biblical authority structures. I believe in churches and homes, the male is the spiritual leader. That is abundantly clear in Scripture. Doesn't mean women can't do certain things. Doesn't mean that at all. It just means that men and women have different roles. Okay? I believe in national sovereignty. We have to do that as Bible students because God wants nations. That's why he confused the languages. So the quintessential three that comes out of that in the Old Testament is language, culture, borders. That's how we define nations. But we have conservatives that are globalists. We have conservatives that believe there's 52 genders. We have conservatives that don't believe in biblical marriage. They don't believe in biblical sexuality. They don't believe in biblical authority structures. So it's like the question is, if you're a conservative, I'm not saying Republican or Democrat, but you're a conservative, what are you conserving? That's the question to ask this woke right. If you're not conserving these values, because these are the hallmarks of our values as typical conservatives, and if you're not holding to this or trying to conserve these, then what are you doing? What game are you playing? I don't want to be conspiratorial, but I think there's been infiltration, and it's on purpose to undermine Trump. This is real simple, but think about this. We hold to biblical morality. Okay. So right and wrong is not judged based on how things either hurt or help our side. If our side is wrong, we say that's wrong. We're not like the leftists and say, well, the ends justify the means. I know he had cognitive disabilities, but it was okay to lie to say that Joe Biden had his faculties. He's sharper than a tack, Jean-Pierre kept saying, and someone signed his name, but that's okay. No, if that was happening on our side, we'd say, hey, man, there's something wrong. He's dementia, has dementia or something. And, of course, no one's going to get in trouble on their side, obviously, but we don't play that game, right? We don't excuse things that are happening if they're wrong. We also, as biblicists or conservatives, we don't believe all viewpoints are equal. We believe in freedom of speech and freedom of opinion. But not every opinion and every speech is worthy to be heard. I'm not saying censorship. I'm not saying any of that. But not everybody that someone tweets is correct. It's free speech, and they're entitled to their opinion, but they could be dead wrong. Okay? The problem is we know on the left is they say all viewpoints are equal. Well, that's not typically a conservative view. And so what's happening on a lot of these conservative shows, they're bringing people on their shows and on their podcasts that have really wackadoo viewpoints, and they claim to be conservative, but their viewpoints have no basis in fact or evidence. So recently, Douglas Murray, he's a good guy, conservative. He's not a Christian, but he's conservative, from Britain. Went on Joe Rogan's show and got into a debate with Joe Rogan and this other guy on Rogan's show. And got into this debate about Israel. Okay? Because in this woke right, there's antisemitism going on, okay? And we'll get to that. So Douglas Murray was talking to this guy on Joe Rogan and saying, hey, have you ever been to Gaza? And the guy goes, no, because he was popping off saying Israel's starving people out and saying off-the-wall stuff that's not true. Typical leftist mantra. And Douglas was like, well, you've never been there. How can you even comment on that? He goes, I have. I've been there in Gaza. I've seen what's going on. I've seen what Hamas does. They steal the food and they hold the people at gunpoint. What are you talking about? And Joe Rogan and this guy were saying like, well, we've lost faith in the institutions. We've lost faith in experts. And the experts were wrong, right? They were wrong about COVID. They were wrong about shutting us down. The scientists were wrong. The medical practices were wrong. And so Douglas comes back And he brilliantly says, yes, I understand that we have lost faith in the elites, but that doesn't mean you kick out expertise just because you've lost faith in the elites. Because if you're going to say that we can't trust expertise and we all have to start from the bottom, that's leftism. That's leftism. That everybody's opinion is valid, and they're not. Because, and Douglas Murray got on to Joe Rogan, and you platform people on this show that don't know what they're talking about historically. And you're giving them a platform, and there's 8 and 9 million people listening to you, and this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Not all opinions are valid. And so Douglas says, I understand you don't trust the experts. We get it. That's what the left always uses. Trust the experts, trust the experts. But that doesn't mean we don't trust expertise. Would you go to a doctor that doesn't have any expertise? Well, of course you wouldn't. Is there historians that have an expertise in history? Yeah, like Victor Davis Hanson? Yes, that guy knows what he's talking about. But see, and so now we have this internal thing going on in conservatism where it's like, don't trust the experts. Well, okay, but that doesn't mean everyone's dumb and everyone has the same opinion. So, question in your own life, is every doctor trustworthy? No, okay? There are good doctors, there are bad doctors. Same thing in churches. There are good pastors and there are bad pastors. It's the way it is. And what am I judging on? I'm judging upon the expertise. Not because the pastor or someone has credentials behind their name. If your pastor has a PhD, it doesn't mean anything. He could be a good pastor, he could be a bad pastor. The credentials don't mean anything. What matters is, does the guy possess expertise? Has he put in his time to study? Has he put in his time to understand things? And that goes for a doctor, a lawyer, that goes for a butcher, baker, candlestick maker. If I'm going to someone does he know how to make candles? Yes, I want candle. I want the best candles. He's an expert in candles. I don't say, well, anyone can make a candle. And all candles are equal. No, because that guy has expertise in making candles. Or if I go to a baker, there are good bake shops and there are bad bake shops. Okay? There's good restaurants, there's bad restaurants. Not all restaurants are equal. Okay, so that's common sense. Everybody understands that there's good and bad. But leftism says, no, they're all the same. And you have to validate all of them. You have to validate all opinions and all things. No, we don't do that. So the debate that Douglas Murray was having with this guy on Rogan and Rogan himself is, you guys are undermining conservatism. You guys don't understand what you're talking about. You're taking a tactic that the left always perpetrates. Okay, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. The dominion mandate. Okay, the dominion mandate comes out of Genesis. The dominion mandate requires every culture to do several things. That culture must be fruitful and multiply. They must have babies. So you have to obey that. And second, you must take dominion of the earth. What does dominion mean? It means you must harness the natural resources of the planet for your human benefit. That includes science, technology, growing things, feeding. It requires teaching. It requires business. It requires a whole society must be based on learning how to adapt to the earth and use it for your benefit. Hence, like fossil fuels and using that to create cheap energy, which benefits humanity, right? Not eliminating it, but mining it out so that people can have cheap energy. Okay, so question. If I use the dominion mandate rubric and then I start applying it to different cultures, all over the world, I can assess where cultures are failing to keep the dominion mandate and where cultures are exceptional at doing it. Okay? So for instance, if I compare Israel with Qatar, I can look at the dominion mandate and say Israel is doing a very good job at multiplying. They have 3-4 kids, and they're innovative in their land. They're doing everything they can to harness the natural resources out of Israel to produce a self-sustaining country. Now, they're not always fully there. They need our help a lot of times, but they're on their way. They're only 77 years old. How old is Qatar? And what have they produced? And if they didn't have oil, what would they have? They would be pounding sand. Because when I look at a culture, I can say, what have you invented that has helped humanity? What have the Jews invented that has helped humanity? Well, the list can go on. Let's start with agriculture here in California, thanks to the Jewish drip system that all of our farmers use instead of flood irrigating. And why did they have to do that with Israel? Because they had limited water. Oh, well, so when we look at cultures, I can then start putting the dominion mandate on certain cultures. So let's go to Europe, where they're not having kids at all, and they're being replaced by Islam, who's having a bunch of kids. So the Europeans are failing in the dominion mandate by not multiplying, whereas the Muslims are doing really well in that. So they're going to be replaced. That's what the point is. Okay, so then based on that, as a conservative, I have the right to say that Christian cultures have brought, and Jewish cultures have brought the most usefulness to humans. We can say that. That's what the West has provided. All of what you are accustomed to didn't come out of third world countries. It came out of Christianized countries, primarily the West, of whatever we have, okay? And whatever has blessed. So I have the ability to say not all cultures are keeping the dominion mandate. Not all cultures have a right to that expression that we're equal with the West. Islam is not equal with the West. Islam has not produced anything like Western society has. But what do the leftists want to do? They want to put Islamic culture equal with Christian culture. And you can't. That's just, and they're going to say, well, you're Islamophobic. It's not that. I'm using the dominion mandate, and I'm saying they haven't produced anything other than oil, and that was just found underneath them. The West has produced medicine, education. Where did education come from? It didn't come from Muslim countries. It didn't come from African countries. It didn't come from other than the West. It came straight from the West. The Greco-Roman Christian triad created education. But if you want to deny that and say, wait, no, all cultures are equal, then you are undermining conservatism. And what are we trying to conserve? A Judeo-Christian culture. And we have people in conservatism that do not want to preserve Judeo-Christian culture anymore. What do they want? I don't know. But don't call yourself a conservative. That's the problem. And then what do they teach? Conservatism teaches survivor mentality rather than victim mentality. But now the conservatives are playing victim in a lot of ways. They're victims to Trump. They're victims to populism, or they're victims to nationalism. Are you serious? You sound like a leftist. And then they're becoming anti-Semitic. And this is the cornerstone that you should pay attention to. There are conservatives among us that are anti-Israel, anti-Zion, anti-Semitic. We are to shun Jewish blood libels. We are to shun Jewish conspiracies. But it's happening. It's happening. And look, we know as Bible students what's going on spiritually about Israel, don't we? We know the global anti-Semitism. We know that it's not just leftism that's producing it. We're now seeing it in conservatism. We're seeing that make its way out. And they know that Trump is very pro-Israel, don't they? They know that. But here's the funny thing. When I talked to that group of Republicans, I talked to one individual, and the first thing out of his mouth, because he said, why did you say Judeo-Christian? I said, because Israel's a partner with this, all of this. Without Israel, without the Old Testament, we wouldn't have a society because it's the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's Judeo-Christian. That sets our society. Well, I don't understand why the Jewish lobbyists in Washington have so much power in this. And he went right off into blood libels. Went right into conspiracy theory. So-called Republicans went right off into conspiracy theories. That's what I'm talking about. So, a lot of conservatives want to exact vengeance. Vengeance is the Lord. That's not a conservative value. We also don't monsterize or demonize everyone that doesn't agree with us because it's called free will. Yes, there are monsters. Yes, there are demons. But not everyone's that way. And we have to value truth and principle over popularity. Okay. So let me show you something real quick. Absalom. If you want to know biblically what's happening right now in conservatism, is there's a bunch of Absaloms that are undermining King David. Okay? He is a woke right, if you want to kind of put this in a biblical rubric. It's someone who uses charisma, manipulation, emotional appeal, and grievance-based rhetoric to divide a nation and undermine righteous authority from within. Was Trump duly elected? Yes. Why do they want to undermine him? Because he's not part of the system. He's not part of the establishment. So we not only have a problem on the left, we have a problem on the right. Just a few things I want to point out. Absalom won the loyalties from King David, if you recall the story. He had targeted grievances and discontent to gain power, right? Absalom used to rise early and stand beside the way of the gate. So basically, Absalom placed himself in front of the gate, and people came to seek justice through him, okay? He had positioned himself where he was accessible, relatable, and attentive to the common man. He says, see, your case is good and right, Absalom would say, but there's no deputy of the king to hear you. I hear your grievances, and if I was king, I would do something. This is what we call a tactical grievance strategy. You're implying that David's government was neglecting justice even though it wasn't true. So he's exploiting the frustrations. Okay, here's my question. When you take what Absalom was doing to King David, undermining his authority, where is the gate today? Because Absalom's in front of the gate. Where's the gate now? Because this is what Absalom did, but where is our gate now? It's the internet. It's social media. It's Twitter or X. It's my platforms. That's what the new gate is. So you have a bunch of Absaloms in their gate or on their platforms doing this right now. And there's hundreds of them doing this, okay? And the problem is, here's what you don't understand. You can hire bots and buy bots and stick 10,000 bots on somebody, and then if they say something you don't like, you can remove those bots, and it looks like they decreased, the algorithm gets all messed up, and they get shadow banned or canceled or whatever because you are moving the bots all around. You can buy the bots. And that's how they're crushing people online, is through bots. This is what they're doing. Absalom went further. He undermined legitimate authority without open rebellion. So no one's going to attempt to go and open rebellion against Trump. They're just going to undermine him. Oh, that I were made judge in the land, then I would give him justice, Absalom said. So he didn't openly attack David. He just subtly implied, I can do better. We know better. So this mirrors the modern manipulation issues of our day, questioning authority with no truth, but with smooth words, emotional appeal. Okay. The third thing he did, he weaponized his charms and optics. So it was whenever anyone came near to bow down to him that he would put out his hand and take him and kiss him. And what is this? Absalom's trying to portray emotional warmth. He's humble. He's just trying to help. He has personal charm. He's drawing people to himself. So basically, he's creating an image that he's for every man, in contrast to the king's distance. That's happening online right now as we speak. And then he built a parallel loyalty structure. If you ever study Absalom, he was very sophisticated in what he did. Very sophisticated. It says, in this manner, Absalom acted toward all of Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. And guess what Absalom did? He caused a divide, didn't he? He stole the hearts away from King David. He was undermined. David's undermined by his own kinfolk. So what I'm saying is, when you see the pattern in conservatism and they're undermining Trump, and the primary issue, the way they're undermining Trump, is through Israel. That's where it's happening. And they're stealing the hearts away from a pro-Trump, pro-Israel movement. Because they don't want us to be pro-Israel. They hate Israel. And they hate the fact that Trump's from the outside. So they are anti-Semitic. So here's what you have to realize. I talk about the global elites, and you know what I'm referring to. I talk about international bankers. I talk about Hollywood. I even talk about the deep state, okay? And you know what I'm referring to. But when these guys on their platform talk about globalist bankers, Hollywood, deep state, do you know what they're implying? They're implying the anti-Semitic tropes that the Jews are the deep state, that the globalists are the Jews, the bankers are the Jews, and Hollywood is ran by the Jewish construct over there. That's what they're talking about. And guys like George Soros, we know he's Jewish, but I mean, he's the one who turned on his own people, right, in the Holocaust. He's a traitor. But they'll say, see, that he's Jewish, and so he's part of the conspiracy. No, he's not. I mean, he's a bad guy, but there's no Jewish cabal that he's a part of. He is a globalist, and he's bad, but he's not part of a Jewish cabal to rule the world. But I'm telling you guys, and I've talked about this growing anti-Semitism, this is mirroring what happened in Nazi Germany. That's what the public started doing. So this hostility to Israel, they'll criticize Israel as part of a broader anti-globalist or anti-Zionist worldview. That's where it's fitting into. And that if you support Israel, then you're nothing but a Zionist shield. And you guys going to Israel, that's what they'll say about me. You go over there and the IDF shows you this, and that, don't you know that IDF is lying to you? Don't you know the IDF is giving you a show? Don't you know it's all wrong? Are you too stupid to see that they're bamboozling you? That's what they say. That's what they're saying. Okay? And we're just a shield. I'm just a shield for Israel. I have been co-opted by the Zionist movement, and I'm under the guise of that. That's what they say. So what they're saying is, people like me, people like you, that support Israel are betraying America First nationalism. Now, here's the thing. I can be America First and be pro-Israel at the same time. But that's what they're accusing me and you of, and Trump of, and conservatives that love Israel of. So this is pretty insidious, guys. This is really insidious. And by the way, the promotion of replacement narratives are fully functioning with these guys, okay? What do you mean? Well, I talk about the great replacement that happened in in Europe, right? With the Islamic replacing the Europeans. That's happening, it's true. It's very true. And I do believe, as other conservatives do, that that's happening to the United States with replacement for political reasons. That they've got to replace the votes with people that are going to vote for them. And that's what the whole open borders was about, right? And also a part of the globalist agenda to basically kill America, to kill Judeo-Christian values and bring all these people in that don't assimilate and don't subscribe to our values. That's true. That's true. But what they say is they put an anti-Semitic spin on it, saying it's the Jewish elites that are doing the great replacement. I'm saying it's the globalists. But they're saying, no, it's the Jewish people doing the great replacement. And I think that's ludicrous. That's so stupid. So Jews who get persecuted by Islam are using Islam to replace Europeans. Am I catching that straight? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And you're saying that there's a Jewish cabal that's doing the great replacement in America? Last time I looked, Joe Biden is not Jewish. What are you talking about? Well, he's under their guise. And what this is, guys, we are having white supremacists in our conservative movement with an anti-Semitic ideology. That's our concern. And then what do these guys do? They are embracing and platforming anti-Semites who just bold-faced lie, don't know what's going on the ground, just like that spat that Douglas Murray, God bless him, got into with that dude on Joe Rogan that didn't know what he was talking about. That guy's a comedian. He doesn't know anything about what's going on in Israel. It's just whatever he reads here in the United States. He's never been there. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Douglas Murray's like an expert on Israel. But yet he has equal weight, because it's his opinion. We gotta value all opinions. Again, that's a leftist element that's entering into conservatism. So what you have is these influencers are platforming these guys like Nick Fuentes, Kanye West, Candace Owens, Munther Isaac, John Rich, Tucker Carlson, and the list goes on. And they're all normalizing anti-Semitism. They're demonizing Jewish influence in Christianity too, by the way. So a church like us is demonized. People like you are demonized, right? They're some of these people are so-called Christians, okay? And they have replacement theology or what we call supersessionism. That's why they're Christian nationalists. They're trying to bring the kingdom here without Jesus. And they're saying that modern Judaism has corrupted Christianity. It's like, what are you talking about? We just studied Hebraisms. Understanding the Jewish background has actually helped us understand the Bible better. What are you talking about? But they say, no, it's hurt Christianity. And again, they're creating a theological justification for excluding the Jewish people and Israel's ongoing plan of God's. That's what it's aimed at. And so this is very insidious. And it's happening. And where it started sparking its head, or spiking its head up, last few months, like February, March, April, I've been watching this. And it finally started being addressed. It was Jordan Peterson that started addressing it. And obviously Douglas Murray and a few of these intellectual guys started seeing this. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, for instance, have you heard the term from them, and this is what they say, Christ is king? Have you heard that? It's a true statement, but do you know the background of that statement? It's coming from them towards Jewish people. Candace Owens said this to Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire. when she was ranting with her anti-Semitism, she just responded to Ben, Christ is king. These Christian nationalists are saying Christ is king. Why are they saying that? What's behind that? Because they're making an accurate statement, but why are you leveling that against your opponents? What are you talking about? Well, there's a couple things wrapped up in this. When they say Christ is king, they are not using the theological framework you're using and I'm using. They're saying, number one, we are bringing the kingdom in, which is dominionism, dominionism, New Apostolic Reformation, it's kingdom now theology. That's where Christian nationalism is coming in from. Okay, in these Christian nationalist circles, what they believe is that they can force the kingdom by getting into 7 areas of government, or what we talked about this, about the 7 mountain mandate, and that they can force the kingdom. And I want to say, you fools, it's Jesus who brings the kingdom, not you. You're part of the church. You're not kingdom building. You're doing the Great Commission. And so they're under that. But here's the thing that goes along with it. What goes along with this kingdom now, dominionism, New Apostolic Reformation, is they think they're the new Israel. So they have replaced Israel with themselves. It's a replacement theology. And along with that comes the anti-Semitic trail that every time you see replacement theology, you will see a trail that leads to anti-Semitism. And that trail is, well, the Jews are cursed, they're done with, and they won't say that outrightly, but they'll say, Israel doesn't have a right to be in the land. That's not their land. Those promises were given to the church, and we are realizing those promises now. And so the political entity over there, Israel, is none of our concern theologically. But let me ask you this, and I know I'm going pretty deep on this, but I think it's important for you to understand this. On a political level, just a political level, not a religious level, is it important for the United States to have Israel over there in the middle of all those Muslim countries? Is it vital to our national security to have them over there? Absolutely. Just on a political level, if any dingbat ever says no, they don't know military strategy. Having Israel over there amongst all those Muslim countries is like having a permanent aircraft carrier with weapons and everything we can use stuck there, right there, and they can't move it. That's how Israel benefits us politically. So basically, we fight those wars over there through Israel. That's strategically what we're doing. And that's why Israel is so vital for us, because they're the filter that takes on all the Islamic world for us. We fight through them. They use our weapons. And if it wasn't for Israel, the fight would come to us here. So when people say, I don't care about what's going on in Israel, well, apparently you don't care about the Muslims taking over their whole country, do you? That's why even politically you need to back Israel. But you and I are coming from a religious standpoint. And you're like, yeah, no, they have the land and all that. I get that. But these guys in conservatism do not see Israel even politically benefiting the United States. They are complete isolationists, well, we don't want to get into wars or anything like that. Well, hey, I can tell you this. You take your hand off the Middle East, what do you think is going to happen? If America becomes a complete isolationist and says, you know what, we don't want to deal with Israel, we want to deal with the whole Middle East, just let it go to pot. Guess what will happen? The fight will come to us. The Atlantic Ocean, they'll cross it and they'll get here. And the fight will come to here. This is why we're being undermined. Now, here's my question. Why are they doing this to Trump, and why are they doing this to Israel? What do you think's going on? And now I'm going to get into theory. I'm going to get into theory, and I could be dead wrong. But what I am seeing is somebody or something is causing a divide right in the middle of Trump's MAGA. And I'm talking MAGA is everyone who voted for Trump. Somebody is coming in and trying to divide this megalithic movement of putting Trump in office and splitting it with Israel, using Israel as a dividing line to break up this MAGA movement. You tell me who that is. You tell me how this is happening. Something's going on here, and it's not pretty. Why are they demonizing Israel? They have no reason to do that. So I'm just telling you, I'm seeing something very insidious. I'm seeing something very evil. And the people around Trump, there's about 200 that are still part of the deep state around him. Okay, yeah, he's got better people today, but he still has other people, and they're putting him in situations, making deals with Muslim countries like Qatar, like Sharia in Syria, and they're not protecting him. Someone should be saying, we don't do deals with Qatar. We don't do deals with a guy that had a 10 million bounty on him, Jelani or Sharia in Syria. We don't do deals with this guy. We don't do deals with this guy. But no one's stopping it. It's almost like they want it to happen. Yeah, take a $400 million plane from Qatar. That won't be a problem at all. And go ahead and fly that instead of the Boeing Air Force One. Go ahead and fly that. They probably wouldn't do anything to it. Okay, that being the case, here's what we have to do. We need to watch this. We need to watch and see what's developing and pay attention to these people on the right now. Listen to what they're saying. When you hear that anti-Semitic trope, that's your radar. It's going to get so difficult coming towards the end. The only way you're going to know who's friend or foe is whether or not they align with the scriptures. You already know what God views Israel. You already know that. That's your true north. You already know what God feels about two genders. You already know that. Use that as your radar. And if anyone diverges from that, red flag. Red flag. Do not just simply trust people because they say they're conservative. Candace Owens is someone you cannot trust. Tucker Carlson is someone you cannot trust. You can't. It's not an accident with the things they say. So keep your eyes wide open on this one, and let's continue to watch how it develops.
Hey everybody, I need your help, and I need your help in 3 different areas. First of all, I need your help on our channel. Our channel is working against an algorithm, and so we need you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And if you'll do that, that helps us get the message out to many people. It outdoes the algorithm that's working against us. So if you'll do those things, real simple, like, subscribe, hit the bell, it'll get our message out to as many people as possible. The second thing you could do to help us out is prayer. We get a lot of pushback online from not only human beings, but from the demonic realm as well. And so we need prayer. And so if you can pray for our ministry, that would greatly help us out. And third, it takes a lot of financial resources to put these programs on. And so we do a lot of filming, with a lot of editing, a lot of going on location. In fact, sometimes we film in Israel, and we film in Turkey and different places like that. And so it takes a lot of money to do these special programs that we put together. And so we need finances. And so if the Lord puts it on your heart to help us, that would be greatly appreciated by us and our ministry. So those are the 3 ways you can help us. Pray to the Lord how you could do that. Real easy. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, pray, and financially support us. God bless you. Thank you so much.